This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com. The only place to be in your pop culture world.
Come on, everybody, come on. We call it the place to be. The place to be, yes. The place to be. Then I shall be.
It is contagious. It is the place to be, and we are live each and every Monday.
Do you actually need a camera for tout, or is it like part of the program?
Yeah, I like Big Dick myself.
I just man, you see, in the place to be. Do you listen at all when I speak on the show?
I'm not the one who thrives on whining about carriages that are 3 inches from my fucking car.
So if it's too much for you and your big cock-of-the-walk Knights of Columbus fat cat,
when does it end,
to bring
JR?
the carriage back to the fucking thing, then what do you want? What do you want?
When does it end?
You're making the poor guy making minimum wage while you're sitting there with our Mento going to the coffers. Party people in the place to be.
5 years. 5 years! We've been doing podcasts. And we have this. This is trash.
It's not Austin in LA. It's not Cabana in Chicago. It's not Conrad down in Alabama. Place to Be Nation presents Scott Criscolo and JT Rosero. This is the Place to Be Podcast.
To do worse than Josh Richard.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to the great episode of the one and only Place to Be Podcast. I'm your co-host, Just Rosero, coming to you live here on this Monday evening inside the PTBN studios. And joining me, as always, on this night is Mr. Scott Criscolo. Scott, how are you?
Good evening, JR. Always a pleasure, sir. Good evening, Place to Be Nation, or morning or afternoon. Welcome to episode 524 of the longest-running episodic motherfucking gold standard. And, yeah, summer is here. And I'm sure things at the arsonist court heating up as the weather is heating up, sir.
Yeah. There's been some games.
Yeah. Nothing of note yet, though, huh? No, like because usually quote or entitle the best games, the Jeff throws up game, or the Justin pulls a hamstring game, or the
Justin had
senior shove somebody game, but
senior's retired. Yeah. Justin, old JR here had a pretty bad lower back issue last week, so it hindered me throughout the game. I fought through, and then I went to the chiropractor, and I'm feeling good for this week. But
snap.
But yeah, no, summer's pretty much officially here. Of course, we've been rocking the Yacht Rock, going into breaks here on our show.
And you know what else, JR? It'll be 1 month. Today's 17th. 1 month Thursday. Will be St. Mary's will be upon us again.
Very true. Very true.
July 20th. Always looking forward to it. Always
fast.
A fun time. We have some special guests this year too. We'll have to keep that under wraps. We already tipped our hat on that. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Keep that under wraps.
Very excited.
Special guests this year. Yes, big time.
Speaking of special guests that somewhat excite us, it's gotten a little less excited with every trip, but he is here. He's become a little bit of a mainstay here throughout the 89 show, Scott, and that is our good friend, the host of the Sportscasters, the co-host of the Adams Division podcast, and that is Mr. Steve Bennett. Steve, how are you?
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing tonight?
How are you, Steve? Good to see you again.
Very good. Scott, our Rumble, our Hogan Macho Man Rumble, that got some press in the
it did.
In the nation. Yeah.
Excellent. It did. I was very pleased. I think you and I tonight though will have to debate the greatness of Mark Young's tights.
Ooh, can't wait for the debate there. That's gonna be hot.
Or Mark Young in general.
Could Mark Young have been a wrestler, not even a star? Could he have been a wrestler?
Yes. Gentlemen. Yes. Well, this evening, guys, guess what, JR? The office has been renovated, at least partial renovations, because they do it again in 1990 as well. But we are back in our haunt, back on the big building on 33rd and 7th. Yes, we have returned to Madison Square Garden, who, of course, we haven't been here since April. After the Knicks and Rangers seasons concluded, the Garden renovated part of the big building. They'll do more in 1990. So we were on the road, I guess, in the tri-state area all summer. Of course, we did the May 8th house show from the Meadowlands, which back in 89, MSG kind of treated the Meadowlands as their de facto arena for the summer. But we are back here on this evening, September 30th, 1989, which is actually a Saturday night, which is very rare for the Garden. Not usually, of course, they're on a Monday, but they wanted to get things back in the swing of things with probably a hot crowd, so they wanted to have a full house, so they decided to do a Saturday night.
You know what I learned last week, Scott? Saturday nights are all right for fighting.
For fighting, yes, indeed.
I did want to give a shout out real quick, I guess, while we're here. We'll pause for a moment and talk about your podcast review of Rocket Man with Mr. D'Amato, which I enjoyed greatly.
Yes.
I thought you guys did a good job. I didn't agree with most of it, but I did like, and I mentioned this in our chat, I enjoyed that you guys provided a lot of talking and discussion points. Like, it didn't fall into the trope of just reviewing the movie. I thought you guys brought up some like good points, whether, again, agree or not. I thought it got me thinking as I was cutting the grass Sunday morning, and it made me, as soon as I finished, like type up all your responses, because it was thought-provoking content. I want to put it that way. So I think you guys did a really nice job covering the movie in a way that wasn't just a review; it was more giving insights and thoughts. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. What and what's funny is I thought when we were about to start, D'Amato was very. I thought we were going to have a kind of a Bennett-esque debate with him about it, but we ended up agreeing a little more than I thought. But so what you're telling me is you liked it better than Bohemian Rhapsody?
I'm going to be honest. I have not seen Bohemian Rhapsody yet. I don't get to many movies. So I'm going to watch it because I am going to see Queen in August with Adam Lambert. So I do need to see the movie before then, I feel like. So I'll watch it right before that. But so I liked it. My thoughts were just that, you guys seem to have issue, at least you did. And I'm saying this with, in a positive way. As a nerd, it would be like a wrestling fan, right? So, like, if you're watching a bio on the history of WrestleMania and shit's out of order, it's going to bother you, right? So, but I'm not quite the music nerd that you guys are when it comes to like historical facts and whatnot. So it didn't bug me per se that like the songs weren't in order of the timeline and this and that.
Okay.
And part of the reason is I kind of appreciated the reason they did it. And I put this in the chat was that I took it like he was talking about the inspiration for those songs in that moment. You know what I mean? So like, your song was written, and that was the time in his life that he associates with that song. You know what I mean? Like, so like that was the way I took it.
Fair enough. Sure.
More than like they were trying to actually. So like when they came up with the Crocodile Rock, it was reminiscent of his first time at the Troubadour, and he had everyone singing with him. You know what I mean? So like that, I took it that way more than they were just trying to prescribe the songs to each time. So that was my main contention point. That like it, but again, I think it has to do more with how into the weeds you are on some of that stuff. Like I could see why, from a timeline perspective, it would bug you.
Right. No, that's actually great. I never really thought of it outside the box like that. That's actually a very good point. I like that. But anyway, we won't continue. Please check it out, placebnation.com. Check out the pod. I think D'Amato and I are going to continue our music pod reviews because I think we're going to see Yesterday, which at first I wasn't crazy about seeing, but then I watched the trailer again. I'm like, this is kind of fascinating.
Well, it looked different. At least it looked unique.
Yes,
like, I'll give him that. You know what I mean? It was like a unique concept. So
yeah. For those that don't know, it's about a guy who gets who falls off his bike during an earthquake and gets like knocked out or something, and he wakes up the next day and he is the only person on the planet who's ever heard of the Beatles. Everybody else has no idea. He types Beatles in Google and a bug comes up, and so he uses their songs and becomes a big star and that kind of thing. So there's also another movie pertaining to Bruce Springsteen music and more music nerdness. I was listening to. I think it was either Classic Vinyl or Deep Tracks, one of the two series channels today. And I think it was Meg Griffin said that Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey are thinking about putting together a biopic on Keith Moon, who was their first drummer, who of course was a wild guy, big drinker and pill popper, and died in the late 70s. So there might be another biopic, and I was saying that I think music biopics now are kind of going to be kind of the big thing in Hollywood with MCU ending, or at least the story ending and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate that. And everybody, please listen after you see Rocket Man and let us know what you think. But a bunch of those Pop Goes the movies will be coming out all summer. I know that Andy and Miranda are trying to do a Godzilla one and a ton of any other movies, JR, quickly, that you're thinking about this summer that might tempt your fancy? I know you don't go to the movies a lot, but I'm just saying. Your wife likes the movies. So.
Star Wars will probably be the next one I see at the end of the year, is my guess. I don't think there's anything else pressing. Oh, we're going to see Toy Story.
Well, that makes sense.
The kids are going to, like, my daughter's good. My son, when we saw Aladdin, he was very antsy, so we may still be a little further away from, like, all going more as a group. So we'll definitely see Toy Story, and then...
Did you like Aladdin?
Yeah, I thought Aladdin was great, actually.
Really? Okay.
This is probably treasonous, but I would position it as it could have been. I think it may have been better than the cartoon.
Wow. Yeah, that is pretty true. But hey, you know what? Everybody's opinion is like I don't think Toy Story 4 is going to be the second. Everybody's talking that Toy Story 4 is going to be the second most moneymaker this summer. I disagree. I don't think it's going to be. But I mean, I think it's going to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I know that's a very niche movie. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I thought Will Smith was awesome in Aladdin.
Oh, okay.
Definitely, I think it's worth checking out. I enjoyed it.
He needed a hit, so he needs a hit. So anyway, so MSG is back to being in the works and working successfully, and we're back in the building for that. Elsewhere on this evening, now I'm kind of confused because one name is not on any list here. The rest of the roster, only one other show going on this evening at the Wharton Fieldhouse in Moline, Illinois. And according to our good friend Graham Cawthon on the history of WWE.com, the only matches he has here are the Rockers. The Rockers defeated the Bolsheviks, and Jake Roberts defeated Ted DiBiase via disqualification. So just to not to tip our hand on the card this evening, but we will not see the World Wrestling Federation champion tonight, Hulk Hogan, and according to Graham, he's not on this show. So I wonder if was shooting starting on something, or maybe he was just taking post WrestleMania, post SummerSlam time off. Maybe it's weird that we don't see him tonight, and he wasn't in Moline. So maybe he's just taking a spell, or maybe he was doing some press stuff or something. So right. I'm curious. Just interesting that we will not see Hogan this evening. Mm-hmm. That is all I have, JR. What tidbits do we have before we begin?
All right, some shenanigans have gone down since SummerSlam. On August 30th, superstars from Portland, Maine, Macho Man Randy Savage defeated Hacksaw Jim Duggan to win the King's crown after hitting him on the back of the head with Sensational Sherry's loaded purse, while the referee was tied up with Sherry. After the bout, Savage gave Duggan a flying elbow smash 3 times while Sherry held his legs, and then Sherry hit 2 splashes off the top while Savage held Duggan. Moments later, Duggan was taken back on a stretcher, and there you go. So we have a brand new king. The summer of King Duggan has ended, and we have now transitioned to the next phase of the Macho Man's career. And we can talk about that more when he pops up for us, Scott. On the 9-9 Superstars, Roddy Piper was a guest of the Brother Love Show, in which Piper stuffed dental floss, toothpaste, and mouthwash in Love's mouth after saying he had bad breath. Moments after Love had insulted Piper. Bobby Heenan then appeared, distracted Piper long enough for Rick Rude to sneak up behind Piper and throw the mouthwash in his eyes. Rude then hit the Rude Awakening on Piper and spit more mouthwash at him until a bunch of officials came out to break it up. So that feud in full gear coming off of SummerSlam. On 9/16 Superstars, Jake Roberts returned, was a guest of Brother Love. Jake said if he was only able to give one more DDT to anyone, it would be Ted DiBiase, after he allegedly had a disc removed to his neck thanks to the Mandela Dream putting him out of action months earlier. A week later, on 9/23, Andre the Giant and Bobby Heenan were on the Brother Love Show, where Andre wore face paint to mimic the Ultimate Warrior. And Rick Martel beat Terry Daniels at 3:33 with a knee drop off the top, and during the match, a pre-recorded promo from Martel aired where he claimed that because of his sex appeal, maybe he should become a model. Finally, in the 9:30 Superstars, we had, and that was earlier in this day here, we had the coronation ceremony of Macho King and Sensational Queen Sherry. The proclamation was read by the Genius, who, of course, in real life is Randy Savage's brother. Ted DiBiase presented a gold scepter, and it was a just wonderful scene with all the heels out there present as Savage was crowned king. So I guess technically the fourth in our lineage, right? We had Harley Race, we had Haku, we had Jim Duggan, and now Macho Man reigns upon the throne. And a sad little note for us, now we will see him again on pay-per-view, but this is Tony Schiavone's final MSG house show as an announcer. I thought and we've talked about this quite a bit, Scott, what a boon he's been to these shows, bringing the professionalism, the experience, liveliness. He's been really good, and it continued here tonight. Like I said, we'll see him at least once more on pay-per-view, but it is kind of sad. Then we'll get him on the house shows anymore. Steve, any thoughts on Schiavone in these shows? Since we haven't had you on for MSG in a bit.
It's interesting because I was kind of thinking you guys are overrating him a little bit. And then I went back and watched the SummerSlam. And then I also watched this show, obviously. And I was like, man, he's really good. A lot better than I thought. This is something interesting. They asked him on his show with Conrad, what is the biggest regret of your career? What do you wish would have happened? And his thing was, he wishes he would have called WrestleMania 6. He thinks if he would have done that show, he would have never left and might still be at the WWF today. What do you guys think of him doing that show instead of Gorilla?
So it's such a tough what if, because I think Schiavone has been great, like really, really great in this run, better than I remembered. And Steve, I'm glad you felt the same way after listening back. But that is such an iconic Gorilla Jesse show, and knowing it's Jesse's swan song, it's hard to sit here and say, "Oh, it would have been so much better with Tony." You know what I mean? Like it was such a perfect cresting. Now that's not to say Tony wouldn't have been great. Like I think he would have been perfectly good in that when he was great at SummerSlam. He's really good at the Rumble. And I think he would have been fine. I don't think they were ready to give Gorilla at Mania up yet, though. So, like, even if Tony wanted that gig, I don't know if they were... unless he said that he was in the running. I don't think so.
No, not necessarily. Yeah.
And he's there right through Mania, I think. He leaves right after it. Because I know he does some matches on the Road to Mania primetime special. He's calling a couple. So, he's definitely around. But, I don't know. It's tough. It's so tough to pull Gorilla out of that scenario.
I agree. For that match, it's not Tony is a great play-by-play guy when the match is very technical. Like one of the matches tonight, thank God he's doing this match, and not somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. But the Hogan Warrior match really, or the main event for that show, really needed. That was a storytelling match just as much as it was a technical match, and I think. The fact that Gorilla and Jesse actually can't stand either guy kind of adds to that. And of course, it was Jesse's last show. I think Gorilla was actually needed for that main event more than Tony, because I don't think we needed to talk about the moveset as much as the psychology.
Yeah,
and
but Tony was good in the moments too. I mean, he had the experience of that. We saw it at SummerSlam. I mean, he was great in the main event of SummerSlam, calling that.
Yep, I agree, but I feel like with Jesse, Tony would have got swallowed up again. Not as bad as SummerSlam, but Gorilla knew how to handle Jesse in the big match situations, whereas Tony, I don't know if he would have. If he had any other color guy, maybe. But it's such an icon. It's kind of hard to hear anybody else's voice during that match, Steve. But that's not to say that Tony would have sucked. It's just that's on. I think what more it is it's just such a huge moment in that building that it's very hard to hear anybody else's voice other than Gorilla to actually compare it with.
And you wonder what could have been if he could have stayed around. I mean, it's tough to say because you get, Gorilla and Bobby still to come. So does that affect that future at all, right? Does Tony get there? And just, I find it hard to believe he lasts from 1989 till 2019. That is a lot. Like very few employees have been there 30 years. So while I think his heart's in the right place in saying, maybe it goes differently, I don't leave and I stay, and things go well for him, I don't know if he actually stays. Like it would have shocked me if he doesn't end up back in WCW at some point during the height of everything. I always thought it was kind of criminal he never made his way back to WWE at some point. Like I think they definitely could have used him. Obviously, we've had a dearth of commentary for many years, but anyway, neither here nor there. Did you have thoughts on it, Steve?
No, I'm like you guys. I'm just not as good as Tony may have been in that show. I'm not willing to give up the last Mania of Jesse and Gorilla.
Right.
So
yeah, and it's
not a starter for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
As crazy as it might have been, it's just a straight no for me. Like I need Gorilla and Jesse calling that show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I don't think it has anything to do with a lack of talent on Jesse's part, on Tony's part.
Oh no.
It's just that moment is just so Gorilla. I can't even give Tony the chance, and that's not his fault. It's just because Gorilla and Jesse were so damn good. And, of course, we'll get there. It's just hard to put anybody else there because they were that good, So, anyway. Speaking of color guys, we sadly do not have Lord Alfred with us with Tony tonight, JR. Yeah, I know. The minute I saw that him pop up in the beginning of the show, I went, oh, no.
He's not even that bad, but as we'll see, he's just very dry.
Yep.
And maybe it changes, but... All right, so we're back in the Garden, first time since April. Tony Schiavone and Hillbilly Jim are calling the card tonight. They set up what's ahead of us, and we get settled in for our opening match, which does feature the man who gave the proclamation back at the coronation, the Genius, taking on the Birdman, Coco Beware. Poffo back in the comfort of the opener, MSG, where he resided for many years, but he's got a brand new look, a lot more heat as the Genius. Reads a poem. Hillbilly calls him the strangest man in the WWF. We have some audio issues, so Coco comes dancing out with no music, which was kind of weird.
It was very strange.
He's been one of the guys that's had music like for a while. Like some of these guys, it's new, but for him, he's had it for a long time. So it was weird seeing him come dancing out, and you could tell that he was waiting for the music that never comes. We get a bunch of stalling and deliberation from the Genius. Genius then prances and dances around, playing it up to the hilt. We finally get some action, but as brief as Coco drives Genius right back outside with a flurry. Genius comes back in. They do a test of strength, which Genius actually controls. And the crowd is fully into Coco here. He whirls out of the test of strength, buries Genius with a drop kick to knock him back outside. Coco unloads headbutts and batters Genius around the ring and whiffs on a charge and slams a shoulder into the post to turn the tide. Genius works the arm in and out of the ring, really beating and battering on it, twisting with hammerlocks. Coco fires away, but Genius cuts him off with a slam. Coco eventually mounts a hot comeback, pelting some offense, including his headbutts. Coco whiffs on a dive and clotheslines himself on the top rope. Genius gets a good near fall there. Coco misses another dive, and this time he slams hard into the top turnbuckle, and Genius rolls him up for the win. Genius talks some really good shit on the mic after, which was funny, and then Coco shuts him up, and that gets a pop. That's a fun little opener. The crowd is invested. Genius is very good at his gimmick. We already know he can go in the ring. We've seen that before when he was Lanny Poffo. For years, but adding on some heel heat and the machinations and the stalling was a nice little addition to mix it up for him. So I think he'll be a boon to this, lower card as a character for as much as he works. And I thought Coco worked hard and fed into the arm work nicely. And this is a fine opener, probably on the, not the highest we've seen, but it's on the higher end for most MSG openers. So Scott, I went 2 stars on this.
Yeah. Excuse me. Oh, the Genius was getting me choked up there. 2 stars for me as well. Your open time, 13:01. So they gave these guys a good swath of time to get this show on the road. I had no problem with this match. I actually I'm really excited about the possibility of a little heel Poffo Genius action. I think this is good for him. I think he was starting to get a little stale as a mid-card babyface. I think people were starting to get tired of the weirdness and the fucking frisbees and all that shit. So probably a good time for him to switch over. And he's one of those good heels that'll make house show matches fun. Like you're not expecting this guy to win like the IC title or something. But he was a good guy to have on the house show circuit, another extra heel to cause some heat for some other guys and things like that. So Coco is just Coco. Good match to start, Steve. Nice combination, and I kind of like the new Lanny Poffo.
I like Lanny Poffo, the human being. I think he's a good guy. I think he's done a great job carrying on the legacy of his brother. I think his brother would be proud of him. And I've always liked his work in the ring. His prancing around was cracking me up. I thought maybe he was auditioning to be an extra in that Elton John movie that just came out. I thought maybe a little bit too much stalling. I actually had you ringing in my head about his brother in the Memphis style. I'm like, well, he certainly is right into that. But I was a little bit surprised when he won. I don't know why. To me, it was a little bit of an upset. One thing, and maybe this is nitpicking, he should have grabbed the tights. Maybe he's adjusting to being a heel, but that's the perfect spot where the way they're shooting it, it's exposed. You got to grab those tights. But I enjoyed it. I gave it 2 stars. Like I said, I like Lanny. And Coco is, he can always go. Well, I thought they told a really good story with the arm, too, where Coco goes into the post and hurts his shoulder, and then Lanny goes right to work on it. So I thought they did a really good job telling their story and working hard. And, yeah, solid 2 stars. I almost went 2.5.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking upset, too. And then I guess I put it into perspective that Genius, new heel character, trying to establish him a bit. And even though it's not as a wrestler, he's going to be moving up the card in a different role. So I guess, in the long run, looking back at it, it kind of makes sense, especially since Coco really hasn't been much in the left column at all in years. So I guess on the surface, it seemed like an upset. And then when you think about it, which I did, I was like, oh, I guess maybe not. All right, that brings us to our next matchup, and that is the Superfly Jimmy Snuka taking on the Honky Tonk Man. Honky and Jimmy Hart chug out as Hillbilly puts him over, but chastises the way he does things. Snuka jogs out to a big pop. His first MSG match in quite a long time. It wasn't in our notes, Scott, but it had to be since 84, right? Or I guess early 85. Did we ever see him in any of our stuff?
The last time we saw Snuka in this building was WrestleMania 1. Right,
I guess I was. Yeah, okay.
Wow.
I was thinking MSG house show. He fought Orton.
House show. He fought. He was at War to settle the score.
Yeah, it was Orton though in February.
Orton and War to settle the score. But yeah, that was the last match.
Right.
For Snuka.
Last appearance was Mania.
The last appearance was WrestleMania 1. Yeah.
All right, so first time in a while for him here. Honky attacks at the bell. Snuka meets him and unloads with a wild flurry. Keeps on offense, hitting an atomic drop at a double axe off the top. Snuka whiffs on a charge. Honky kicks and punches away, as soft as ever. Tony puts over his precision, but Snuka fends him off and lands a backhand. Jimmy tangles up Snuka's leg, and Superfly heads out to stalk him. Honky comes out too, but Snuka catches him and unloads. Honky catches Snuka coming back in, kicks him outside, and Honky keeps slugging away until Snuka headbutts free. Snuka tries a springboard splash, but Honky gets the knees up for 2. Hibbley says Snuka had a very hard head, of course, as Honky goes up and goes to a neck vice. Snuka fires up out of the hold, but Honky cuts him down with a pair of knees to the gut. Honky chokes away as Jim talks about the Undertakers around. This is a weird comparison he works in here, but when he said Undertaker, it made me perk up. Snuka ends up on the floor again. Honky, he's punching him when he tries to get back in. Honky takes him in with a solid back suplex and a real good pile driver. Honky calls for the shake, rattle, and roll in place of the crowd and tries it, but Snuka gets time in there and reverses it to a backdrop. Honky comes right back with a punch, but Snuka hulks up and unloads with headbutts, punches, and kicks. Honky and Jimmy collide, and Snuka slams Honky and buries him with a headbutt off the top for the win and a huge pop. And I will say this. This was fine. That was such a letdown, the finish. Like, the crowd was buzzing and, like, ready to explode for the Superfly splash. And then he just does a headbutt and wins. It was like, what the fuck was that? Like, they're all get up on their feet. They haven't seen it in years. Here we go. And then he just hits the headbutt and wins. I don't know if it was Honky not wanting to take the bump or Snuka saving it or whatever the reasoning was. But it was weird. I was ready to kind of jump for it. It was like the crowd was so into it, and then such a letdown. Fine match though. Honky shows some okay flashes, better than recently, and the crowd really loves Snuka. I think the splash could have actually been a pretty big moment for this show if he hit it with the way they were ready to explode. So decent enough match. I went 2 stars, Steve, just like the opener.
Yeah, Tony kind of covered for him on the splash there.
Yeah,
on the commentary, he said something about, Honky was a little too far out, so in the air he kind of adjusted. I don't know exactly why they didn't like you, but I thought Tony did a good job on the mic kind of covering. One thing I was thinking about during this match is Jimmy Hart might be historically a little underrated. Every time I watch and he's a part of the card, he's just busting his ass so hard, and he works so hard, and he's so good at what he does. He's such a little pest out there. And I was thinking about him a little bit and thinking, like, whenever we talk about the greatest manager of all time, we always mention Bobby Heenan, who probably is the greatest. And then you might hear people who like Heyman, or you might hear someone say, oh, it was really Captain Lou back in the day or whoever. But Jimmy doesn't get brought up enough. And I know he might not be the greatest of all time, but I think he deserves a place in that conversation. And I was just thinking about that during this match.
I think it depends what you factor in. I mean, if it's all promotions, I do think he's up near the top when you factor in Memphis and WCW. WWF only, he's in the conversation, but yeah, I think he kind of falls a little bit because I do think his best stuff is probably Memphis. But he's really good in WCW too. Like, he's great with all the Sting and Luger stuff. He's the most salient part of the Giant and Hogan feud. And then he ends up with the Faces of Fear and all that stuff. Like, he is really good. Yeah, you're right, Steve.
Always working his ass off. I thought Honky Tonk Man and Jimmy Hart kind of carried this a little bit, helped Snuka, who maybe had a little bit of ring rust or some butterflies being in the garden again. I don't know. I thought they were really good. This was just a lot better than I thought when they were coming out. I had 2 as well. Exceeded my expectations. I was thinking probably about a 1 star when everyone was coming to the ring, but I thought they pulled off a pretty decent match.
I agree. 2 stars for me also. Your match time, 10:27. Yeah, I really wanted to see the splash. Again, I've said this often throughout the history of the podcast that Jimmy Snuka was my first favorite wrestler. So seeing him come back is awesome. And, to both their credits, the match wasn't total dregs, but this match proves that Honky's starting to write out the checks now, because that time's over. Honky's just another guy now. I want to talk about Jimmy too, Steve, because let's be honest, he was actually the first real successful manager in the new era of wrestling, what I call the Federation era, starting in 1985 or 1984. Even before Bobby, don't forget, the run Bobby's having right now, where he had the IC champion and the tag team champion in the same year. 2 years earlier, it was Jimmy that had it. He had this guy he has right now, the Honky Tonk Man, and he had the Hart Foundation. So you could argue that he was the first great. He was at the top of the list 3 years ago because he had all the great guys, ranging from Funk and all the, and then the Hart Foundation, and then even the Rougeaus and Honky, and. And now, of course, he seems to have faded off, and now he's pretty much got a bunch of mid-card, hacks. So Bobby's definitely usurped him, but I would never say that Jimmy was overrated by any stretch or even disrespected. He's definitely in the pantheon of great managers. But a great match. Better than I thought. But the ending was I was waiting for the splash. I was ready to get pumped.
Well, the crowd was too, clearly. I mean, they all got up.
Oh no, it was insane. And one thing about you know what? I'll get more into Hillbilly when we get to the second half of the show because the matches got better there. He's been fine. He's been, the one thing that he could do that Alfred can't. But I find it odd why Hillbilly's doing this show at all because Alfred's there, but maybe because there was no other talent and they needed somebody to do the interviews. You're not going to have Hillbilly do the fucking interviews.
Oh, I think they were trying to prep. I mean, Hillbilly's clearly pretty much done as a wrestler. So I do think they were working on him to possibly take on a role in commentary. Yeah, so I think they were grooming him a bit. He does end up with a role like on Primetime in a couple of years. So, they always kind of eyeballed him for like an analyst commentator kind of role. And I'm pretty sure he sticks around with MSG for a bit. Like, I think he rotates in here for a while. So, yeah, I think they would just try to add another body and give him something to do. But he's fine. He's just way more subdued than I would have pictured. And maybe he improves as we go, and this is just his first one. But he's a lot more monotone and quiet than I remembered or expected him to be.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, too. But having said that, again, the match was good. 2 stars, a lot better than I thought. But Honky's definitely starting to cash the checks now, or write out the checks now. A lot of light looking now for Honky at this point. Now we don't even know how much longer he'll be here. Well, no, he'll be here for a while. So, but obviously the solo heel is starting to run its course.
All right, Genius comes out, back out to the ring. As Tony Schiavone says, you can't get too much of a good thing. And he's here to do introductions for the next match. He gushes over Mr. Perfect and then brings him out for his match here. And that next one is a big SummerSlam rematch between Mr. Perfect and the Red Rooster. Perfect has some new Regal music. Not the theme we all know. It sounded more like a Ten Commandments type song.
It did, yeah, it really did, right? Or like a Cecil B. DeMille movie or something. Yeah, I agree. It
was an interesting first take on. He would get his real music soon enough, but for now we got this one in the mix. Perfect has great swagger. He comes out. You can really feel him moving up the ladder. Like the package is coming together. It's almost there. The music needs a little tweaking. He's coming out. He's cocky. Like it's getting there. It feels like a bigger deal than he did. Rooster comes out and Hillbilly talks about his own experience fighting with roosters on the farm to put over how tough the Red Rooster is. Rooster's healed up, hoping for a better showing than at SummerSlam. Genius stays at ringside, and it looks like maybe we have a new alliance. Hillbilly calls Genius a magnate, a manajet. Magnate. Manajet, which was a bit much. But Tony thinks he's just an advisor, and neither of them think Perfect even needs a corner man. Perfect blindsides Rooster with a hard shot and gets to work. Rooster battles up Barnyard style, as Hillbilly says. Mounts a comeback that ends with an atomic drop that sends Perfect to the floor. Rooster works the arm a bit, and the two trade some blows, with Rooster winning the battle with chops. Perfect eventually kicks the taped knee of Rooster and zeroes in on it with a precision attack. Perfect twerks the knee and really twists it around. Rooster grabs a flash near fall, but Tony says he's in trouble with the weak knee. Of course, that all stemmed from SummerSlam. Perfect keeps picking the knee apart, and Rooster trips him up, and Perfect hits his head hard. Rooster starts to fire away and hobble around through his comeback. Perfect's wobbling as Rooster gets 2 on a backdrop. Perfect slugs him down and goes for a figure 4, but Rooster cradles him. But Perfect stops short, rolls through, and stays on top of the cradle for the win. This is feisty. Rooster looked pretty good here. I want to say better than he looked in a while, but that's mainly because he's been fighting the fucking Brooklyn Brawler since January.
Yeah, pretty much.
So he gets something to work with. Perfect was on point, really destroying the knee, and I love the finish. I thought it was real well executed with Perfect just outsmarting him like he does everyone else. This is better than SummerSlam thanks to Taylor's knee. And I thought Perfect, just keeps rising, but he really needs a feud of some sort now. Like he's kind of done with the one-offs. We thought maybe we were going to get something with him and Bret Hart. That didn't really materialize into much. So we'll see from here. But I went 2.5 stars in this, Scott. I thought it was perfectly fine. A bump from SummerSlam. And Rooster seems to be at least working through the knee injury at the least.
Yeah, yes. No, I agree. I gave this 2 stars. Your match time, 9:38. So the match has been pretty meaty so far. Both competitors in our first 3 matches getting a decent amount of time to work. It was fine. The music did seem like it was, they stole like the Ten Commandments,
it was weird,
CD or whatever and slipped it in. That's exactly what it sounded like. But yeah, I mean, Rooster, I don't know how much he's got left in the tank either, but at least he was wrestling somebody other than Steve fucking Lombardi. Ugh. But I like the telling of the story with the knee, and I think Perfect looked fine. I like Genius in his corner. I think this is a great pairing, and I hope we continue to see it. Obviously, good spot for Genius. He could wrestle, but he's a good enough of a heat magnet right now that he fits in this spot well. Kind of helps Perfect a little bit. No, doesn't hurt to give him a little extra something. No harm, no foul in that. I thought it was a good, solid match, Steve. 9.5 minutes, and I mean, Rooster looked okay, but it may feel like he's maybe running out of gas, but Perfect looked fine.
I actually really like this, maybe a little bit more than you guys. I think I said this last time we had a Mr. Perfect match, and I was on. He's just one of the best bumpers of all time. I love watching him work, and this is the best I can remember seeing Red Rooster in maybe forever. Like you guys both said, I thought it was a great continuation of the knee and the knee injury and working on the knee with Rooster. And like Justin said, I love the finish. Just a clinic by Kurt. I gave it 3 stars. I really liked it.
It was solid. You wonder what SummerSlam was shaping up to before Rooster fucked his knee up. Like if it was going to go a little bit longer and go into a similar type of finish and how that would have went, or if it was pretty much cresting anyway. But I mean, good for Rooster. We rip him enough, so I'll give him credit for working through the knee injury because he's clearly still dinged up, and also delivering a much better match when he's in there with guys who can work. I mean, we've bagged him a lot, but that's really more on the booking than anything because he's just been completely saddled and stuck with the Brooklyn Brawler for most of the year. So good on him to get something moving here. All right, trivia time, guys, because our next match comes out of left field, and it's Barry Horowitz taking on Mark Young. And I consider 89 to be the fringe of my wheelhouse, but I feel like if there was a wrestler in the WWF between like late 88 and say 98, 99, I probably know who it was. You know what I mean? Like you're not getting too many by me. If this is in the trivia book or a contest or something, I'm probably guessing. I had never heard of fucking Mark Young. Like I didn't know who he was. I had never seen anything about him. I had no knowledge of him prior to this, and it completely caught me off guard. I was trying to figure out if it's someone I should know. And he does have some lineage here. So Mark Young's real name is Luke Joseph Scarpa Jr. So does that bring up any potential tie-in for you guys?
I will cheat.
I know who it is. Yeah.
Okay. So he was born April 23rd, 1967. He is the adopted son of Hall of Famer Chief Jay Strongbow, Joe Scarpa. Trained by Stu Hart and made his professional wrestling debut in 1986 for Stampede in Calgary as Mark Scarpa. Left the promotion in January of 87, worked as an enhancement talent. After competing in several promotions, retired in 93 and passed away at the age of 48 in 2016. So we don't see much of him. We don't see him ever again. This was a complete blind spot. I had no clue when he came out. I had never heard of him, and I was like, whoa, a guy I had never heard of. Sad that he passed away so young. No pun intended. And it looks like he actually wrestles quite a bit. He's got about 80 entries from June to December on Graham's site. So he's there for pretty much the whole year. Let me check 90 to see if he bleeds in there at all. Yeah, he's got another 26 and 90.
Wow.
A guy that I had never heard of, honestly, is right on my nose in the wheelhouse. Now, I don't know if he was ever on TV. Yeah, he did. He worked TV. So I guess maybe I just thought of him as a jobber. Maybe if I did recognize the name at all, because he does pop up here. Orient Express defeat Louis Spicolli and Mark Young. He's Greg Valentine defeated Mark Young in primetime. So it looks like he eventually becomes an enhancement talent. So maybe that's all he was, and that's why we didn't know him by name. Maybe he was just an enhancement guy that they gave a shot here. But he does get music and a gimmick. He comes out with some really wild, it's like a blend of circus and hip-hop music that comes out. He's got Evel Knievel style tights. He's breakdancing in the ring. He's got an awful mullet, like this cropped mullet going on. It was just a weird package. So when you look at him, you think, okay, this is like another Nick Kaniski and these other guys that pop in for a night. But it looks like he was around for a while as a jobber. So there you go. I don't know. Maybe Kelly's heard of him. I'm not sure. Horowitz attacks at the bell, but Young leaps over Barry, sends him bailing with a backdrop. Young works the arms, moving at a good clip here. Tony puts over Barry's experience as Young just keeps working the arm. Barry gets a slam for 2, but Young goes back to the arm. Barry keeps working free, but Young just gets a hip toss and an arm drag and an arm bar. Goes to a side headlock. Barry takes him over with a backdrop. Barry stomps the hands and rakes the eyes as we meander along. Young gets 2 on a backslide, but catches Barry's foot on a lame kick attempt. Barry looked awful there. Barry slugs him down. Barry hits a solid butterfly suplex for 2, gets a crucifix for 2, as the slow as fuck referee counts these awful pin covers. Like, the pins are awkward. He's slow as shit getting to the mat and counting. Barry gets a body scissors. That goes on for a while. Young slips free and teases the stomp in the groin, fucks around and ends up missing an elbow drop. Young ducks a clothesline, gets a sunset flip for 2, but Horowitz keeps control. He heads up top, but Young catches him coming off with a really awkward sludge to the gut. Young hits a knee, a drop kick, and an ugly clothesline, and then a sunset flip off the top rope for the win. I thought this was awful. Young was a mess. He did a couple cool high-flying spots, including the finish, but not much else. And this just felt interminable. Like, it just felt like it was never going to end, and the crowd completely checked out. If Young had any, chance, it was out the door here. Just a rough showing. It's a guy that can go. Is he a star? No, but he can work. Poor showing, Steve. I went a half a star, and that was really just with a couple of high spots they mixed in.
If I'm being honest, I'll have to admit I have never heard of Mark Young in my life. Like you said, if he's on TV, maybe I'd seen him in the past, but he made no impression. I had no idea who this guy was walking out to the ring. I thought it was funny. Tony and Hillbilly Jim were talking up Barry Horowitz like he was like Bruno Sammartino or something in there. They just kept going on and on about his experience and just how, I'm like, is this the same Barry Horowitz? My goodness. And like you said, it must have been really noticeable because I also had a note saying that these old refs have just been a disaster tonight. This wasn't the only match where these old dudes just getting in the way and they're not in the right spot, just really distracting. Mark Young with the worst Hulk up of all time, just zero response from the crowd at MSG. I give it a half a star too, and I kind of felt like I was being generous. Could have easily been a dud, but I'll give it a half a star just because, like you said, the guy flipped and stuff, I guess. I don't know. Brutal.
I gave it a half star as well. Your match time, 10:58, although it felt like 88:58. First off, it makes sense that this guy sucks because even though he's adopted, he still wrestles about as good as Chief Jay Strongbow does because he fucking sucks too. This match was terrible, and I don't know why putting him in with Barry Horowitz was ever going to do anything for anybody. This should have been a much faster match. They could have added, minutes to another match or an extra interview, or instead of giving. I mean, there's no way these two should have gotten 11 minutes. Not at all.
I honestly felt like 111. Like, it just would not end.
It was awful. Yeah. It was awful.
Give the time to fucking Coco and the Genius. At least they know how to work. You know what I mean? Like anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Would have been better.
The rest of the matches were fine. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the matches, were about the same length, but we're talking about two. The rest of the matches had actually good guys in it. This was the shits. Not good at all. And you're right. If Mark Young had a sliver of a chance, regardless of who his shitty, no talent adopted dad was, this went out the window because he was fucking horrible. Mm-hmm. And you're right, Steve. Maybe Bruno could have rocked the suspenders better. I don't know, but they were literally making Barry Horowitz out like this was Hogan Andre WrestleMania 3. It was totally outrageous what they were trying to do, and it fell flat.
It was rough.
It fell flat early. And then it felt like looking at an abandoned car with 4 flats for the next 8 minutes.
It was long and tough to sit through for sure.
It was absolutely terrible.
But the crowd does wake up when the Fink comes out and says the next match is scheduled for one fall and is for the Intercontinental Championship. The crowd pops huge when he says that. And that brings us to a big-time war on paper as the Ultimate Warrior defends his recently reclaimed Intercontinental title against Andre the Giant, a feud that really was born right on the cusp of SummerSlam the week before when Andre attacked him on behalf of Rick Rude. Fink calls Andre the Ultimate Warrior, fucking up where the gimmick's supposed to be Andre the Ultimate Giant, which is what he had been calling himself with the paint. He screws that up. Jim really puts over Andre as a mountain and a legend, and the heat and boos for Andre and Bobby are great as always. Warrior gets a monster pop as he charges to the ring like a maniac. We get a big stare down. Andre gets into a defensive position and blocks a clothesline with a choke. Warrior breaks it with a kick and chokes away by jumping on Andre's back. Andre comes back with more chokes and chops and buries Warrior in the corner with his weight. Warrior keeps hammering away with right hands and wild clotheslines in the corner, but Andre levels him with a right hand to slow him down. Goes back to choking. The crowd is rabid and rallying Warrior as Andre hooks an angel wing submission. Warrior slips free and gets a bear hug clamped on in a fun spot. Andre punches free, but Warrior slams him to a huge pop. Warrior goes to the splash, but Andre punches him on the way down. Andre can't get up, and he's just rolling around, but he's kicking Warrior away as he's rolling. Warrior lands a big kick to the head. Andre falls from his knees into Warrior and knocks him to the floor. Andre kicks away and punches as he comes back in. Warrior catches Andre with a kick and tries an axe off the middle rope, but he eats a knee. And this, at this point, I was just marking out. Like, this was so much fun. The wild offense, the defense by two bulls, just like landing a fist and a knee wherever they can as the other guy charges. Warrior unloads more punches and clotheslines him hard to the floor, and the crowd says bananas as Bobby's flipping out at ringside. Warrior celebrates in the ring as Andre gets to his feet and slowly returns, and I was totally expecting a count out there. I was shocked when Andre got back in. Warrior charges, but Andre pulls the ref between them, hits Warrior with headbutts. Andre elbows Warrior. Bobby wrestles up the ref, but the ref calls for the bell and the disqualification. Andre and Bobby celebrate with the belt, and then we get the official announcement of the DQ. Warrior recovers and batters Andre and regains his title. And then they brawl again outside as Warrior just starts whipping Andre with the belt, eventually knocking him down. Andre gets up after. He says he's the new champ, and he thanks the crowd in a great bit. I love delusional Andre. Wild match with great heavy offense. So unique. The crowd is red hot. Lots of big blows, defensive saves. Andre gives it his all. It's amazing with what he has to work with and how much he has left to give that he's just out there. And I compared it, and Steve, I think both of you probably like this comp, but as like an aging veteran pitcher who just doesn't have his stuff anymore, but gets by and guile, like 2008 Mike Messina, he's just out there like just getting by, working the corners. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like with Andre to me. Like he can barely move, but he's out there just making this shit work. I thought this was great. I fucking love this. It reminded me a lot of the Savage one from a year ago. I think it was September 88, honestly, with that wild Savage Andre brawl. And Andre's the best. Warrior delivers another big match. I went 3.5. I really, really liked this. It was wild. It was crazy. It was different. It was unconventional. And it's worth a watch for anyone who hasn't seen it. What do you think of this one, Steve?
I loved it. I thought it was awesome. There's a Vince McMahon sighting in the beginning when Warrior comes out to the ring. They show him kind of running through the hallways, and Vince is just like caught in no man's land, almost gets trampled by Warrior. So I kind of popped for that. Like you mentioned, I mean, Warrior's just over huge with the MSG crowd. Oh, I laughed at Hillbilly Jim when Warrior slams Andre. Hillbilly's putting it over like it's the first time Andre's ever been slammed.
Yeah.
So I was speculating in my head if maybe at WrestleMania 3 he had to leave and take Little Beaver to the hospital. So that's why he didn't see Andre get slammed. Like I had this whole like.
Well, and then Andre said, they claimed he never was slammed or beaten, so he wouldn't know.
No. Yep. Poor Hillbilly was at 8 Mile General or whatever it's called in Detroit with the Little Beaver. But man, Andre worked his ass off and bumped so hard for Warrior, and just Andre, like you just watching him thinking like, what a fucking legend this guy is. Just unbelievable. I give it 4, so I loved it. And I was thinking this is one of those where I was like, okay, is it 3.5 or is it 4? And if you guys did quarters, I probably would have went there.
Yep.
So I'm deciding, all right, am I going to go 3.5 or 4? I'm like, you know what, for Andre the Giant, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, and that's why I went 4.
It was great. I probably would have been 3 3/4 as well if we had it. What do you think, Scott?
9:28 your match time. I gave this match 3.5 stars. It was fucking great. I honestly was expecting the 30-second squash that we had been that I guess had been going on around the circuit, but I am very happy I didn't get that. It was a sloppy, bludgeoning fucking mess. It was so great. It was perfect for these two guys. Like I wasn't expecting a technical marvel, but I was expecting a lot of shitty moves and rolling around. We didn't get this at all. And I agree with you 100%, JR, about Andre. Whatever little bit he has left in his tank, he's putting the pedal to the metal every time now. So we got to give the boss his due here because he went right out there with he's got practically nothing left. You could see it. Going up the steps hurts. And he just does not care. I don't know if he's guzzling, gallons of Gallo or, or Carlo Rossi or whatever the hell, 32 cases of fucking Miller High Life. I don't know what the hell he's doing in the back, but no pain at all, apparently, because he was just bludgeoning Warrior. And, the more we watch the Ultimate Warrior, the more we know about Jim Hellwig and his, he was not as dumb a guy in terms of working a match as we think he was, or as some people may think he was. He knew he was limited. He knew he wasn't, Bret Hart or fucking, Greg Valentine or Perfect or whatever. He knew he wasn't that kind of wrestler, but he took what he could and helped and worked to adapting it to whoever he was facing in the ring. And he knew that with Andre, there wasn't much you were going to get. So he had to go out there and do the best he could with a guy, a legend, who probably hated him, and because Andre didn't like a lot of people at this point, and had to work a good match. And they did. They did. With not a lot. The ending was fun with fucking Danny Davis getting put in the middle, and it was just well put together. And obviously the next phase of Warrior begins here. So he kind of needs to put on great matches now if he's going to get what we think he's going to get. And we don't know if that had even been discussed to this point. We'll talk more about that as we move forward. But he definitely is taking advantage of what he can with the guys in front of him. The Rude feud's over for now. There's not he's not feuding with Perfect yet. Like they haven't elevated Perfect to IC level just yet. But Bobby still had a lot of bullets in his gun, and Andre is just that good to be able to do that with as much as he could do. So I was just so impressed with both of them and the story they told and the dance they did. And yeah, I think this is a year since the good match he had with Savage. I mean, obviously we give the benefit of the doubt there because Savage is just so fucking good. But kudos to Warrior and kudos to Andre for putting together this bludgeoning shitfest that was so damn entertaining. I could watch a match like that over and over again. I was just so enamored with how they put that match together in the best way they could. I would have given it 3 3/4 too, if we did. But it was that good. It was that good.
All right. Very good.
So, yeah.
All right, why don't we go ahead and take a break about halfway through the show, and after, a mediocre platter, we head into our halftime here with a really, really unexpectedly great match. It was a lot of fun. So, all right, why don't we take a break? We'll come back. We will talk about the second half of the show.
It's not in the way that your love set me. It's not in the way you look or the things that you say that you do. For the lie, love isn't always on time. Whoa, whoa, whoa. For the lie, love isn't always on time. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Place to Be Nations, JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have over 24 podcasts available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We now offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE to the glory days of yesteryear and the ins and outs of the territory days. In addition to our full-length shows, we also deliver to you special pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop Feed is a veritable treasure trove of great content, offering tremendous shows covering the land of movies, television, life, comics, and sports, brought to you by the most knowledgeable and insightful folks in the podcast world.
You can find all of these current shows, plus archives of our previous podcasts over the past 8 years as well, by subscribing to our feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available at PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using www.placetobenation.com/Amazon while doing your online shopping. And be sure to join us at our forum at bigelow34.proboards.com for all sorts of wrestling, sports, and pop culture discussion each and every day, where you can make your voice heard. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and TheHistoryOfWrestling.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceStation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
This is legendary ring announcer and WWE Hall of Famer, The Think, Howard Finkel, and you're listening to the Place to Be Podcast.
Our nation, we're back taking a look at the September 1989 Madison Square Garden house show. Steve Bennett, Scott Criscuolo, and myself will really take a quick moment here to talk about what's going on in the land of Place to Be Nation. Over on the PTB and Pop feed, the latest Talking Pop, Jennifer and Tim interview each other, share summer memories, and a rare guest list episode, but that doesn't mean it's lacking fun and frivolity, so check that out. In the 7th installment of Laugh-In Theater, Miranda Berthel joined Andy watching Men in Black. Of course, the newest edition of that franchise was released recently, so some good timing there. Hard Traveling Fanboys kick off X-Men month with an edition of Countdown, providing their complete 11-1 rankings of the X-Men cinematic universe. Scott, we talked about earlier, you and D'Amato talking Rocket Man, and Pop goes to the movies. NBA team is churning up their Gone Fishing series, parts 3 and 4, looking at the kind of basement of the Eastern Conference as they continue to wrap through their off-season reports. And also on the newest Sunday Groove, David Sunday back talking Elton John and Chris Cornell. Speaking of music, on June 23rd, the reboot of the Greatest Song of the 80s tournament kicks off. There'll be no bots, but there will be plenty of polls and fun. 6 polls a day posted in round 1. You can get on the action on Facebook. Just search PTBN's Greatest Song of the 80s tournament. Like the page, and you'll get all of the updates each and every day. You can weigh in. The videos will be linked in the comments. It's quick and easy. Just pick the picture or the vote, however it's set up, of the song you choose and move along with your day. So be sure to weigh in. And Scott will be giving our votes as the weeks go on based on the polls of that day, like we have in the past for these. So check that out. And, of course, I'll mention, too, you and the crew, you and Andy, and was it D'Amato and Todd were on that?
It was indeed. Yep.
Okay, you did an official tournament prediction and preview show. So that's out now live on the Pop feed as well. So check that out to get yourselves amped for the tournament and hear what the so-called experts have to say. Over on the PTB and Wrestling feed, we had a brand new Wrestling War Zone, myself and Chad, looking at the Raw and Nitro from January 15th, 1996. We had a new Making Towns with Friends, Steve Williams recounting his experiences back when he trained in Ohio Valley Wrestling in the 2000s. After a 6-month hiatus, Steve, you and Peter Winston were back reuniting and discussing your top favorite single-season sports teams on a brand new Adams Division podcast. Anything you want to mention about that?
No, it was really fun to do. Great to be back. We're recording part 2 this week now that the Stanley Cup is over. Peter wanted to make sure, when he wasn't sure if he needed to include the 2018-19 Bruins or not, so we were waiting on part 2 where we're going to record that this week. It was fun to be back. We got a sick new logo, which we're excited about, which purposely left out the Canadians, which we thought was fun. But yeah, it's and we're glad to be on the Place to Be Nation feed for sure.
Awesome.
Excellent.
All right, excellent. 8th episode of Row 1, Seat 1. Ben Zanny continued his road trip diaries, the interview of Mikey Blanton discussing Black Label Pro Wrestling, and then Scott, you, Nate, and Steve Willie recapped New Japan Dominion and had some classic match picks on the newest main event. Over on PlayStation.com, wanted to mention the Tribute to 1994 series kicked off. We had a commentary from Michael Adamos on the Best Picture nominees from the 66th edition of the Academy Awards, and also a really good piece by Callum McDougall breaking down the 1994 World Cup. So that was really well done as well.
I have a story about the 94 World Cup real quick. So
do I.
I watched my great-grandmother and my grandmother, both from Italy, obviously, and when they came over or whatever, and I was watching the final, the Italy-Brazil final, with my grandmother, and Roberto Baggio kicked it over the net. Brazil started celebrating, and I looked over and she was crying her eyes out. I said, "Grandma, you don't even like soccer. What's wrong?" And she just said, "Oh, I'm just so sad for Italy. I'm so sad for Italy." And then when they won in 2006, like any good grandson, I went to the store and bought her some flowers and took them to her grave. She would have loved to see that redemption in 2006. But that's my little story about the 94 World Cup.
I have a story as well. Mine's not as emotional, but maybe it's emotional for my wallet. So I was in Newport with my girlfriend at the time, and obviously my name ending in a vowel. I was rooting for Italy over Brazil, and I walked into this Irish pub right on the main strip in Newport, and there were all these Irish guys, and I actually had my Italy soccer jersey on, and of course they looked at me like, "Get the fuck out of here, you Guido." But I said, you know what? I guarantee you Italy's going to win. And if Italy does not win this game, I will buy everybody in this bar around. And I left. I didn't stay. The game had just started or whatever. And I walked up. We did some we did some shopping and futzed around and stuff. And then I went back in the pub, and I literally walked in, and 10 seconds later, Roberto Baggio kicks the ball over the net, and they all turned and looked at me, and I went, fuck. So I bought 14 pints of Guinness. So, I dropped a couple $100 because of fucking Roberto goddamn Baggio couldn't kick a ball. It was a fucking penalty kick.
Did come running into the bar? Ooh, free beer. Ooh.
Free beer. Ooh, I know, right? No, this was well before I met him. So yeah, that was my story. And that was in 2006 when they beat France. I remember I was in New Haven, and I was on Worcester Street, which is like the Little Italy in New Haven. It's kind of like
Worcester Street, Asbury.
Worcester Street, exactly, or Fed Hill. And all the Italian places were throwing French fries out the fucking door. It was actually pretty funny when Italy won. But yeah, no, I read Callum's piece. It's excellent. Please check it out. And speaking of 1994, guys, very quickly before we get into the Pop Culture Corner, guess what today is? The
Monday.
Day that will live forever. Yes, it was. Except that year it was a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And it will forever live in 1994 infamy, June 17th, gentlemen. Wow, what a day that was. Of course, one of the best 30 for 30s that ESPN did was June 17th, 1994. So, JR, you were concluding 8th grade?
I just probably just graduated 8th grade, yeah.
Okay.
I was 13. Times are good. I remember very vividly sitting in my bedroom watching the hockey game and then breaking in with the OJ stuff. Like, that's a very vivid memory of mine. I know right where I was. I remember it all.
The basketball game.
Basketball game, yes, sorry. I always get confused with the Rangers winning the cup. But, the basketball game going on. And them cutting in, because at that point I watched like every NBA playoff game, no matter when or where it was on. So I was definitely tuned in watching, and the cutting back and forth and all that breaking in was just insane.
I finished my junior year of college, and I was actually working. I was at the liquor store I was working at, and I got in this huge debate. This is before the chase happened. This was during the day when he vanished, and I got in this huge debate with a girl I worked with. About the exactly about the but she thought that I was still telling her where the hell the ambulance was and why Hogan had to do all this EMT work. No, I was because at the time I had no idea, and I can't believe I was not only defending OJ but a fucking USC alum. How the hell I did that, I don't know. But I was like, nah, fucking. What's her? Nicole was on drugs, and drug dealers killed her, and Ronald Goldman was a supplier. Like, I was on this whole fucking blind pro athlete kick that OJ
did you
was.
Kevin Sullivan too in 2007.
I did, yeah. Kevin Sullivan killed him in the bathroom. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it was just chaos. And then we went to my friend's house and we were playing poker, and his TV was in the kitchen. We were in the living room playing, and I used to, because the Lakers were not good. So I was all in on the Knicks, obviously, because of Patrick. And I'm watching a game, and I'm looking, and Knicks up 2, game tied. Knicks up 2, Rockets up 4, Highway, Bronco, Knicks up 2. What? And then we just stopped watching, and it was just iconic. It was crazy. And then I actually called Karen, my coworker, and I apologized to her, and I told her she was right. But that was the only thing that day. You had, obviously, it was the parade. You were close, JR. The Rangers, I believe, and you clear me if I'm wrong, Steve. I'm pretty sure the Rangers had their parade that day.
Correct. Yep.
I
The
knew
Rangers,
it was
because they
something
won
hockey related that day, yeah.
Yeah, the Rangers had won Game 7 that Tuesday. That was one of the few times I ever saw my father cry, because he was a Ranger fan his whole life and the whole 54 years and all that shit. So that happened. You had the Knicks and the Knicks, but that was even before they were doing drops with OJ the whole day, because apparently he was supposed to turn himself in or whatever, and nobody could find him. It was also the second. It was the second round of the U.S. Open, and it was Arnold Palmer's last round as a pro. My dad didn't give a shit about OJ or the fucking Knicks or Arnie was his guy. My dad, God rest his soul, was a fan of Arnie's Army for years and years, and my dad was very emotional that day because he loves Arnold Palmer, and that was his last U.S. Open. And that was I think it was at Oakmont, which is his course, if I remember. I might be wrong on that, but and then I think
start of the World Cup.
Start of the World Cup, and I think Ken Griffey Jr. was like remember this was all before anybody knew about a strike. I think Junior was at the time on a pace to break Maris's record. It was
he definitely
17.
was. Yeah.
He had like 27 homers at that point, or 20 something crazy number, 28, 29 homers.
I don't know for sure, but I do know that was like the first. Like it was a big deal. Like they thought he was definitely gonna. Yeah. He was on pace to break the record that year before the strike.
He actually homered off future Yankee and ex-Met David Cohn. Cohn, of course, at the time was pitching for Kansas City. He actually won the Cy Young that year. Coney, he won the AL Cy Young. So I mean, what a day! Just a ridiculous day. And on a side note, June 17th for Yankee fans was a big day. 18 years early. Let me do the math. 16 years earlier, June 17th, 1978, was the game where Ron Guidry struck out 18 California Angels, which is still a Yankee record to this day. And I remember that. My brother graduated high school that day, and I was 5 years old. But
so
anyway,
Griffey homered on that day. The Mariners won 5-1 over the Royals. There were 9 games under 500, but he had hit his 30th home run of the season in that game. That was June, like you said, June 17th. So he was easily on pace to.
The strike was what, like July 30th?
Yeah,
something like
early August.
All I remember about the last game before the strike was Kenny Rogers threw a perfect game. I remember that. I forgot again. So I think that was against the Angels too. And I contend to this day that I don't know if the World Series would have been the Yankees and the Expos. I contend that the Expos might have won that series.
Yeah, and who knows?
Maybe.
It might change baseball in Montreal if they do win it all. I mean, they were loaded. Both teams were really loaded, but Montreal was really stacked.
The Yankees were very loaded. The Yankees didn't have what they would need to win 2 years later. But, I mean, the Expos had good pitching. They had that crazy lineup. They had like 6 lefties. It was crazy. But anyway.
The last game was August 11th.
Okay.
At least Seattle's last game anyway.
Yeah, and Kenny Rogers threw a perfect game for the Rangers. I thought it was against the Angels, but any event. Check out all the great stuff on PlaceToBeNation.com pertaining to 1994 and the tremendous year.
And just to note, I'm going to be writing something about the 1994. All 4 of the big Seattle bands put out #1 records: Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana. And I'll also be doing a podcast to go with that. With David De La Silva and Steve Hayden. And Peter and I are going to be doing an Adams Division podcast where we do our top 10s of 1994.
Awesome.
So,
looking forward to that. There's going to be a lot of great content. There's some really cool stuff planned. We're going to repurpose some old content that maybe for those newer fans of PTBN may not be aware of. And then a lot of fresh content as well. So, and I know I got something cool planned with some of the staff members too, looking at like music videos from that year, different stuff like that. So should be a lot of fun. Look for that throughout the rest of the year here as we celebrate the 25th anniversary of 1994. So with all that said, we still haven't gone through our pop culture corner, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. The one thing I think OJ was saying in the car as they were driving was something along the lines of "Girl, I'm going to miss you." I don't know, but that is the song that was playing underneath us. That probably ended about 12 minutes ago. The #1 song in the nation on this day, sung by lip synced by Milli Vanilli. And that brings us to Scott Criscolo's Pop Culture Corner.
Thank you, JR. And he was probably telling Marcus Allen or Al Cowlings, or whoever the hell was in the car with him. Yeah, we all had the girl that you're missing. Anyway, yes, the #1 song in the country on this date, September 30th, 1989, because this day wasn't a Saturday, so this was a fresh Billboard Top 100. Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You by Milli Vanilli was #1. #2, good song here, Heaven by Warrant. Tremendous song. Video was shot in Connecticut. Matter of fact, on a farm in Orange.
The opposite of heaven.
Yes, some places, yes. Great song by Cher at #3, If I Could Turn Back Time. #4, Cherish by Madonna. If I could do it, with her tattooed butt. #5, Miss You Much by Janet Jackson. I love that song. 18 in Life by Skid Row at #6. #7, One by the Bee Gees. Yes, the BFG, the B fucking G's. Their first top 10 hit in, probably like 9 years, maybe 10 years. #8, Kisses on the Wind by Nena Cherry. That's a Steve Bennett chick right there, Nena Cherry. #9, Don't Want to Lose You by Gloria Estefan. And at #10, Love Song by The Cure. So the #1 song in the country on this day was Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You by Milli Vanilli. All right, we'll move quickly. Only 2 movies, JR, came out on this day. The first one, That's right. That was kind of a renaissance for her in 1989.
I wonder if Ricky ever got parole.
What's that?
I wonder if Ricky ever got parole. 18 in life, Ricky.
That's right. Well, the gun went off. The bottle was a gun, or whatever the heck.
Yeah, the child blew a child.
Child blew a child away. Yeah, really. Yeah. All right, JR. 2 movies came out that day. The first one, a drama. Welcome Home. Welcome Home.
I was hoping for Welcome Back, Carter.
That would be tremendous.
All right, 1989 film. Jake Robbins went off to Vietnam, leaving his wife behind to mourn when he was reported missing, presumed dead. 17 years, yes, it could have been. 17 years later, he unexpectedly returns. Having been a prisoner of war, Jake was rescued and ended up in Cambodia, having a family. His reappearance was a godsend for his father, Harry, but mixed blessing for Sarah, his wife, who had moved on with her life. While old feelings stir, Jake confronts the military on how his disappearance was handled, and more importantly, how to track down his missing Southeast Asian wife and child. Starring Chris Christopherson, Jo Beth Williams, Sam Waterston, Thomas Wilson Brown, Trey Wilson, Ken Pogue. That's about it. The film was not a box office success.
No, I don't think anything Chris Christopherson did by then was good. All right.
Horribly sincere at best, embalmed at worst was the one of the critics, Leonard Moulton.
Embalmed. All right, and the other movie that came out the day before, the 29th, made $6.6 million. Johnny Handsome.
Ooh.
That's D'Amato's surname when he goes to hotels.
All right.
That's what he checks in as at WrestleMania.
Strip clubs. John Sedley is a man with a disfigured face, mocked by others as Johnny Handsome. He and a friend are double-crossed by 2 accomplices in a crime, Sonny Boyd and her partner, Raffy. Judge sends Johnny to jail, where he vows to get out and get even. In prison, Johnny meets a surgeon named Fisher, who's looking for a guinea pig so he can attempt an experimental procedure and reconstructive cosmetic surgery. Johnny, figuring he has nothing to lose, is given a new, normal-looking face before being released back to society. Starring Mickey Rourke, Ellen Barkin, Elizabeth McGovern, Morgan Freeman, Forrest Whitaker, David Schramm, Alan Graff, Rain or Shine.
Really? Oh. Rainer Shine. So there you go. That's the only 2 movies that came out in this week. All right. Taking a look, Mr. Bennett, at the domestic chart going into that week. At number 9 was Batman, still making a ton of fucking money, even in September. It came out in June, still kicking ass. Turner and Hooch at number 8. Number 7, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Number 6, When Harry Met Sally. This is a pretty powerhouse list. Number 5, Parenthood. Number 4, Uncle Buck. Number 3, Johnny Handsome. There you go. Finished number 3 that week.
Jeez.
It would drop pretty far after 1 week. Number 2, Sea of Love. I remember that. Ellen Barkin and Al Pacino. And the number 1 movie of the week for the weekend was Black Rain, which was Michael Douglas. Yes. I think it was Michael Douglas, some kind of Asian mafia, Chinese mafia kind of movie. Anyway, so that was the movie situation. All right. You can keep playing it because guess what, gentlemen? For the first time in Steve Bennett's career,
I'm pumped.
And for vengeance for my PIC, for the first time this season, we take the field. Now, my PIC spent 1985, 86, and 87 bullying Tony Nelson, the bishop, his picks. However,
and for his shitty takes in wrestling.
That too. But of course, Mr. Nelson could not join us anymore due to work schedules and such. So we had JR versus the World in 1988, and the World got Kelly Nelson's revenge, beating you last year. What was the final tally last year?
I think it was 54-50.
54-50. We had many guys. Mr. D'Amato. Oh, God, who else? I think Andy Atherton did a week. We had a few people.
Atherton, Winston, D'Amato, Greg Phillips were the 4.
Okay. So,
it was really on Winston's back. D'Amato beat me week 1, but I evened him out. So after 2 weeks, we were tied. Peter beat me by 3 the next week. I tied Greg, I beat Atherton, and then lost by 2 to Peter. So old man Winston is the one to take me down. The rest of the scrubs played even at least.
All right, well, Mr. Bennett, making your debut here with the picks. So we'll do the following day, so Sunday, October 1st, week 4 of the 1989 NFL season. Of course, your defending champions were the San Francisco 49ers, who, of course, won that great Super Bowl 23 over the Bengals with the Montana to John Taylor touchdown. The final game in the career of the final NFL game in the career of the great Bill Walsh, who would retire, do some TV, and then he would go on to coach at Stanford for a little bit before sadly passing away due to cancer. So George Seifert, the rookie head coach, taking over the loaded 49ers. All right. We begin at the Astrodome in Houston, where the Oilers host the Miami Dolphins. Jay.
All right, and this is what, week 4? Week 4, okay. I'll take Houston at home.
Okay. Mr. Bennett?
Same. Run and shoot.
All right. Warren Moon threw for 254. Oilers 39, Dolphins 7.
Suck it, Marino.
Let us go on to the Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, the JETS Jets, hosting the Indianapolis Colts. Mr. Bennett.
I'll take Dickerson and the Colts.
All right, JR.
Give me Gangrene.
Well, good news for the Jets. They held Eric Dickerson to only 52 yards rushing.
Shit.
But they lost. Colts win 17-10. Let's go to the Superdome in New Orleans. The Saints hosting the Washington Redskins. JR.
See, Bennett should have went first. All right, I'll go Washington going into the Dome and winning that one.
Yes, I know this game very well. Morton Anderson missed 2 field goals, and the Redskins walked off on him 16-14, if I recall.
You are correct. Yes, Redskins win 16-14. So you took the Redskins. Okay. Next, we go to the Superdome. I'm sorry, the Metrodome.
All right, Hogan. Come on, brother.
See, where domes can I blow? The Metrodome in Minneapolis. The Vikings hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mr. Bennett.
Oh, Vikings all the way.
Yeah,
okay.
Minnesota.
Yep. Vikings win 17-3. Let's go to Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. The Chiefs hosting the Bengals. JR.
Chiefs at home, baby.
Always go Arrowhead, right?
The game is at Arrowhead, yes.
Yep, I'll go Chiefs.
Chiefs? All right. I didn't realize Ron Jaworski was a Chief. I totally forgot that. And bad move because they lost. Bengals win on the road, 21-17.
I should track how many of these. I always pick the Chiefs at home, but I don't know how accurate it ever is. I should probably track this for myself here. But
all right, let's go to Lambeau Field.
It's 88. Who needs stats, nerd?
Let's go to Lambeau Field in Green Bay. The Packers hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Mr. Bennett.
Oh, nobody wins in Green Bay. I'm taking Green Bay all the way.
I'm going Atlanta.
The Magic Man, Don Majkowski, throws for 295. Packers win 23-21. Let's go to the Superdome. No, damn it, the Silverdome. Haha, Hogan. Silverdome in Pontiac. The Lions host the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see, 6. JR.
I'll go Detroit.
Oh, I got to go Bubby. Bubby Brister.
Bubby threw for 267. Steelers win 23-3. Let's go to Cleveland in a rematch of the AFC Championship game from 2 years prior. The Browns hosting the Denver Broncos. Mr. Bennett.
Oof. Tough. All right, I'll go Cleveland at home.
Yeah, me too.
Browns always beat the Broncos when nobody cares. Browns 16, Broncos 13. Let's go to Rich Stadium in Buffalo, where the Bills host the New England Patriots. JR.
I'll take Buffalo.
Yes, the Big Green Bills would eventually lose to the Browns in the playoffs on Ronnie Harmon's drop. I'll pick the Bills as well.
Yes, Patriots started to suck. Enjoy it now. The Bills win 31-10. Let's go to the aforementioned Candlestick Park in San Francisco. The defending world champion 49ers host the Rams. Mr. Bennett.
Wow, this is a good 49ers team. I think they were like 14-2. I'm not picking against the 49ers, but something about this is scary to me, but I'll pick the 49ers.
Yeah, I'll take the Niners.
Rams win.
Shit.
I almost took them. Damn it.
Yeah.
13-12. Let's go to the Coliseum in L.A. The Raiders host the Seahawks. JR.
I'll take the Raiders.
I'll take the Seahawks.
Dave Craig throws for 227. Seahawks win 24-20.
Jesus.
Let's go to Texas Stadium in Irving for the first of what could be many ugly games as the Cowboys host Jimmy Johnson's first season as the Cowboys host the New York Giants. Whose turn is it? Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, I don't recall this going well for Jimmy in the first season, so I'll pick the Giants.
Yeah, I'll take the G-Men.
Giants win 30-13. Get used to it. Let's go to Phoenix. First or second season for the Cardinals out in the desert. They host the San Diego Chargers. Whose turn is it? 10, 12. JR.
I'll take the Chargers.
Yeah, I'll take the Chargers as well.
24-13. San Diego wins. Ex-Cowboy Gary Hogaboom. He was still in the league in 89. Wow. Threw for 261. Didn't matter. And on Monday night at Soldier Field in Chicago, the Bears host the Philadelphia Eagles. What is this? 10 for Mr. Bennett.
Bears, Soldier Field. No, they never lose at Soldier Field. Bears.
Yeah, I'll take the Bears.
Randall Cunningham threw for 401 yards. But the Bears won anyway, 27-13.
How do you throw for 400 yards and get 13 points?
I know. Only the fucking Eagles would. So there you go. So there's your week 4. And what was our tally, JR?
Steve Bennett with 12 and yours truly with 8. So I feel like I had a pretty good week, but Bennett was hot.
Smoked.
Yeah.
And I should have had that 49ers one. I knew they lost that game. Damn it.
All right. So there we go. JR needs to catch up.
I got to get Kelly back in here.
Would you like Andy Atherton to do every show from here till the end of the night?
He can just do the picks, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So baseball's still going on. It's late in the season. On this day, let's see, the end of the 1989 season, the Yankees, they beat the Detroit Tigers 9-2. 15-15 for Andy Hawkins. Lee Guterman with his 13th save. The Mets win in 11, 7-2 over the Pirates. And who's your team again, Bennett? I always forget.
I guess it's the Braves, but, it's the Braves.
All right. Well, they, I think, sucked. So they off? Where are the Braves? Maybe they got rained out. I don't see them here. Phillies, Twins. Yeah, I don't see the Braves here. It's weird. Anyway, the standings are the Blue Jays had the AL East wrapped up. Let's see. Oakland comfortably. They win the West. The Cubs won the East. And the Giants won the West. So there's your 4 division winners. Toronto, Oakland, the Cubs, and the Giants. So let the postseason begin in Major League Baseball. And one more note, by the way, before we conclude. It's a small note in terms of history, but it's the harbinger of something bigger that would happen later on in the year. I just got to bring it up. On this date, September 30th, 1989, let me zip ahead here. Here we go. Nearly 7,000 East Germans who had come to Prague on special refugee trains are allowed to leave for the West. Now, that sounds like utterly dull and boring to you. However, it was the harbinger of a month later, November 2nd, when, of course, the Berlin Wall came down.
Mm-hmm.
So, harbinger of history to come right there. On this date, 7,000 East Germans were able to cross the border in Prague, Czechoslovakia, to West Czechoslovakia. And, of course, again, about a month later, I think it was November 2nd, 1989, the Berlin Wall came down.
Yep, I remember that pretty vividly, too, for only being 8. Yeah,
well, big deal.
Yeah.
Huge deal. Yeah,
Sounds
definitely.
like Steve's daughter crossed over the border as well.
Yes.
For a little good night. So.
That was his congratulations for
you guys could hear that?
Oh, yeah. I heard it all.
Oh, yeah. She crossed over the Berlin Wall. That's great.
Cute. All good.
It's cute. Very nice. All right. There's your pop culture corner. Finally, let's wake up the garden.
Here we go. That was somehow longer than the Barry Horowitz Mark Young match, but here we are. All right, we go backstage. Well, Alfred Hayes is with a rowdy Roddy Piper who mocks all of Al's points. It says that Rude has terrible mismanagement. He feels bad for him. Piper makes a Tammy Faye Baker joke about Bobby and rambles on from there. Says he's lonely, cruel, and vicious. Piper says while they sit around joking, he's smoking and poking. Odd promo as always for Piper. Al's then with Greg the Hammer Valentine and Jimmy Hart. Jimmy says Ronnie Garvin will get the Heartbreaker, and they don't care if he's a ref, announcer, or wrestler, because Garvin will be out forever once the figure 4 is locked in. The Hammer says it's a pleasure to bring Garvin to his knees tonight. He got Tony to reinstate him, and tonight they go one-on-one. He put Garvin out, brought him back, and he'll hurt him and put him out for good. Al then talks to Demolition. They talk about the Brainbusters riding high. They're riding in limos, drinking wine, celebrating with women, and that they better enjoy their final minutes, as shortly they'll be taking back their belts. They'll kick their teeth in, and if the Weasel sticks his nose, they'll have an equalizer this time on their side. Al's with Rude and Bobby. Bobby says talk is cheap and no loudmouth in a skirt will tell them what to do. Tonight he gets the beating he deserves. Rude says they'll meet face to face after backstabbing each other. Rude says he made a fool of Piper and Brother Love. Al agrees with that. He says when Piper takes a bite out of the big apple, he'll find a worm, and that worm will be Rude, and one bad apple will spoil a bunch. I feel like there's a lot of mixed metaphors in there, but whatever, it worked because it's Rick Rude. All right, that brings us to our next match. Is a tag team championship match featuring the champion Brainbusters defending his Demolition. Here we go again with the roles reversed. The third time we've seen this one. Great heel heat on the cocky champs and their manager. Massive pop for Demolition. They chug out and stomp to the ring with focus. All four start brawling before the bell rings. The Brainbusters get whipped together, eventually slugged to the floor. Arn gets pinballed around before falling into a tag. Telly leaps and Smash catches them, and he and Axe clubber viciously at the gut. Axe lands a shot from the floor. Arn lands a shot from the floor, but that doesn't stop Axe, who just mows through both champs with ease. Axe cranks a neck vice as the challengers are fully in control here. Smash stomps away angrily and drives Arn to the floor. Axe meets him out there and chases him back in. Right into Smash, who clubs away. Smash grabs the near fall, and Tully makes a save. Arn's able to escape and tag. Tully hits a double axe off the top as the champs find their bearings. Arn returns and hits a beauty spinebuster that Smash recovers and blocks a kick and runs into Axe's boot. Smash hits a suplex, but Arn tags Tully. Tully runs into an Axe knee from the apron. Axe beats on him. Arn gets more of the same when he tags in. Axe goes back to a neck vice, but Tully comes in off the top and clobbers him from behind. Tully then chokes Axe on the floor. Axe tumbles outside. The Busters find their groove, and they start to go to their heel team tactics, picking up near falls as Axe is faltering. Tully gets a seated chinlock, tags Arn, who stomps away. The champs quick tag and cheat where they can, wearing down Axe. Axe and Arn collide in the ring, and just as Axe is about to tag, Tully runs over and yanks down Smash. That was a nice spot. Arn recovers and takes down Axe. Axe escapes and tags Smash, who comes in and cleans house. Tully gets knocked outside. Smash scoops up Arn. He and Axe clothesline him across the top rope in a nice spot. Smash covers, but Tully yanks the ref out and just levels him for DQ. The Busters and Bobby book it with the belts as Demolition stand pits off and in shock. Red hot finish with the real swank near fall into the DQ. Really good stuff, as always, with these teams. They have really good chemistry. I put this on par with the May Saturday Night event and a tick behind July. The crowd seems a little bit burnt after the Warrior stuff and the break, but it was well worked. A lot of opening shine for Demolition and a very precision-focused heat segment. I thought it was just missing a little something to get up to that next level. But a strong showing. Both teams look really good by the end. I went 3 stars in this, Scott.
This match was a lot of fun. Your match time, 12:51, so they got a good amount of time. I gave this 3.5. I loved it. You were talking earlier, Steve, about great bumpers and how Perfect's a great bumper. I don't think anybody bumps. I mean, Perfect's good, but one of the best bumpers, particularly in tag matches, is Arn Anderson. He knows how to just fucking take a beating and throw his body all over the place based on the type of bump. He was on fire tonight, just throwing himself all over the place. And it was kind of refreshing to see Demolition having to chase for once. I think it was nice. It's nice to have something a little different in terms of storytelling for Demolition. And the for them to have to wrestle frustrated, because I mean, let's be honest. As good as the feud probably was, it was hard to really see Demolition as the underdogs or as the ones facing the powers of pain when they were the ones that had the belts and everything, and it just didn't feel right. But here it definitely feels right, big time, with them chasing the frustrating Brainbusters and Bobby, and it was it definitely changed the narrative for Demolition to put on a different kind of match. I enjoyed it a lot. They're the ones that have to win clean now, so not that they were being when they were faces, they weren't winning clean, but now they realize we have to get a pin or a submission, and it was a lot of fun to see them have to wrestle almost desperate at times, and they win the match but just fall short of winning the title, Steve. But a lot of fun, got a good amount of time. But like I said, I'm curious your thoughts on Arn too, because he bumps just as great as Perfect does, particularly in a tag team setting.
Oh, Arn's a stud, and I love those spine busters. I love this match. I give it 3.5 too. It was another one, maybe if it was quarters, I might have went 3.75, but this felt right at 3.5. What I love about the Brainbusters is you can never guess what the structure is going to be in their matches. Sometimes you watch a team over and over. It's like, okay, they're gonna dominate. Then they're gonna switch it over. Then there'll be the hot tag. With them, you kind of never know the structure. They always keep you guessing, and I think that's a genius part of their chemistry and their ability to kind of run a match, call a match. The hot tag with Smash was great, huge pop, and I love the finish. Strong match, 3.5. Really enjoyed it. Love watching these teams. Wish the Brainbusters never left. Wish they stayed forever. But yeah, really fun.
You know what I wish? All right, next up, another big match. Rugged Ronnie Garvin taking on Greg the Hammer Valentine. Big match here. Feud simmering all summer, finally getting to a boiling point. Slugfest incoming. They had a war in MSG back in December before this feud even started, if you remember that one, Scott. Hammer attacks at the bell. Garvin slugs him down, drives him to the floor. The two bulls meet center ring, tussle to gain position in a unique spot. Hammer pushes Garvin to the corner. They trade shoves. We get some fun boxing between the two with a lot of jabs and dodging, slowly building to the big chops they lay in, with Garvin eventually unloading a flurry of them to drive Hammer to the floor. Garvin keeps on the offensive with brutal strikes, and then Hammer gladly retaliates with some of his own. Tony says Hammer wants to injure Garvin as the two just keep wrecking each other with wild, hard punches and chops. Garvin drives Hammer to the corner 10 times and buries a headbutt for 2. Garvin works a hammerlock, but Valentine breaks out, catches Garvin with a stiff shot, and goes to a chinlock. Hammer keeps that locked in for a bit, but Garvin eventually fires out and unloads some more great strikes. Garvin gets a sleeper and punches away before setting up for his reverse figure 4, but Hammer goes to the eyes and then comes up with some chops and a hard elbow for 2. Hillbilly says he hopes their medical insurance is paid up as the two trade shots, but Hammer gets the shin breaker and adjusts his shin pad. Garvin blocks the figure 4 with a hard right hand. Jimmy gets on the apron, but Garvin kicks Hammer into him and gets a roll up for 2. Hammer dumps Garvin outside. He comes back in and gets back on top. Hammer blocks a pile driver with a backdrop, but Garvin gets a sunset flip for 2. Garvin blocks a sunset flip with a hard right for 2 count of his own. Hammer slowly goes up. Garvin catches him with a slam off the top and chops away. But Hammer blocks a sunset flip and drops down and grabs the ropes to hang on for the win. Garvin beats up Hammer after the match with more hard strikes. And God, what a hard-hitting war. These guys just beat the shit out of each other over and over. What a battle. Lots of good near falls and good heat. And it didn't feel long. It just kept moving. And Chad Campbell, guys, tells me this actually finished 7th on the Death Valley Driver DVD-VR 80s WWF list. So best match of the 80s. This finished 7th on their project.
Wow.
So I went 4 stars on this. I loved it. I thought it was great. This feud is a gift that keeps on giving, and we still got stuff to come. But God, what a hidden little great feud, Steve. What did you think of this one?
I just can't believe how stiff it was.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were slapping the shit out of each other. The chops were ridiculous. Their chest must have been burning for the next 6 weeks. I thought it was a great heel finish by Greg the Hammer. Kind of like how I was talking earlier about the genius not grabbing the tights. He did a great job grabbing the ropes here, screwing Ronnie Garvin. Man, it was just so stiff, so brutal. Really, just really different than everything else on the card, I think. Kind of made it stood out. I gave it 4 stars as well, just for how hard they worked, if nothing else.
Oh, so good.
Because they really went at it just so hard. And I wouldn't want to take one of those chops, and they probably took, like, without even exaggerating, like 20 each. I mean, it was brutal.
The longest match of the evening, 17:05, and this was a Southern wrestling match in a Northern wrestling arena. I gave it 4 stars. This match was fucking great, and I'm not the biggest, as most people know, I'm not the biggest Ronnie Garvin fan, but this match was terrific. I'm trying to remember. I'm gonna have to ask Chad, because these guys have had some type of chemistry or some kind of something back in the territory days before they came here.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it's hard because I'm in the middle of one of my. I don't know. Yeah, probably not. The only reason I'm saying that is because I'm in the middle of one of my network viewing, timelines, and I'm watching Mid-Atlantic '83 when Hammer was the United States champion, but he's feuding with Piper. That's of course leading up to this is the build of the dog collar, and Garvin's not there. I don't think Garvin comes to Crockett till I think '85, maybe '84, but I think he was in Georgia at this time. So I have to confirm that with Mr. Campbell, but so maybe they never did, which totally stuns me because these two definitely look like they've wrestled plenty of times.
This is 2 veteran, hard-hitting guys. I mean,
yeah,
it's not like I wouldn't even call it chemistry. They just they just beat the shit out of each other, which is good. It's chemistry, but like I don't think it's from being comfortable with each other. I think they're just two veterans who get it. I mean, maybe they did fight before. I don't know if they crossed paths. It's possible, but I think it's just two guys that have an understanding that they're going to go out there and work snug and stiff. And they've had it. I mean, the December match was great, and this one was right up there with it. I actually wanted to check real quick to see what we graded that December match, Scott. I don't know if we went 4.
3.5?
Yeah, 3.5 sounds right.
Maybe.
I'll check it real quick.
Well, he's checking.
You went 4. I went 3.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, snug is the key. I mean, there was no wasted motion. They had a story. They kept each other close. I mean, at this point, Hammer's a brick shithouse, and Garvin just knows how to work these matches snug. He's got old school Southern thinking. Hammer just knows how to wrestle anywhere and everywhere. This was a ton of fun to watch. Just watching the two of them just pummel the crap out of each other. Mm-hmm. A lot of fun. A match that really surprised you that they can continue to be this good on a show that really started off slow and then just hit the gas with Warrior Andre and has not stopped since. This show might have been saved from being like a 2 for me or 2.5. Yeah, a lot of fun and a really good mid-card feud that had a lot of good psychology to it. The whole Garvin was forced to retire, and he was harassing Valentine in the other WWF roles, forcing Valentine to pretty much reinstate him. Yeah, it was just so well done. Yep. And there's backstory here. Yeah. You know, this isn't some throwaway mid-card feud. There's a great backstory. And we're again, as you said, JR, we're coming on almost 10 months old. Mm-hmm. And it's been fantastic. It's really kind of bolstered the mid card and has given some real heft to a lot of these matches in the loop. And of course, we'll see them at least one more time on TV. Yep. And one of my most infamous early grading years. But now you watch it, you're almost
like, you probably you went a bit far off. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to that when we get there. But tremendous match, 4 stars for me. I could watch these guys all night long. Just hit the shit out of each other.
It was so much fun. All right, that brings us to our last match of the night, and that is another SummerSlam payback match as Roddy Piper takes on the former Intercontinental Champion, Ravishing Rick Rude. Piper's first true feud since Adrian Adonis in 1987, and he's back here. His first MSG match since probably that six-man in February of 87.
February 87. Remember that fucking awesome 6-man?
Yep, I would say that's probably his last match. I think at MSG before now.
It was, so. Yeah, it was February 23rd. It was Piper, JYD, Steamboat against right. It was the 3 feuds, right?
Savage,
Adonis, and Harley.
Yep.
Yeah, and that match is fucking great. That match is so awesome.
And that had Slick on commentary too, I believe. That was the really good Slick Monsoon. All right. Yeah. Perfect pairing on paper here. Great dichotomy across the board. In gimmick and in ring. Nice heat on Rude. Heenan and Rude do a great pre-match promo. Piper's locked in. He marches out to a huge pop. Rude grabs the mic and tries to talk, but it's off, and then it gets fixed. Rude tells Piper to take his miniskirt off because he doesn't know if he should kiss him or beat him to death. Rude charges before the bell, but Piper chucks him outside and chases Bobby to the back. Piper comes back and chokes Rude with his shirt, but Rude fends him off and whips Piper with his own belt. Piper comes out of the corner with a drop kick, and they fight over the belt, which Piper eventually wins. He whips Rude over and over, including a great shot across the ass. Just fucking decks him with it. Piper wraps the belt on Rude's neck and whips him to the corner. Rude comes back with an atomic drop and some clotheslines. Rude gets to work with hard punches and then hooks in a bear hug. Rude keeps targeting the back and then grabs a seated chinlock as the crowd rallies Piper. Rude yells at a fan that he's hung like a hamster as he cranks on the hold. Maybe laugh. Rude cuts Piper back down with strikes to the back and then poses and goes back to the seated chinlock again, but Piper fights to his knees, to his feet, and then gets an electric chair. Rude collapses on Piper during a slam for 2. Piper dodges a punch during a block sunset flip and then gets blocks a backslide and gets 2 on a small package. Piper levels Rude with a hard right hand but misses a charge and careens into the corner. Rude goes up slowly and hits his fist drop for 2. Piper blocks a Rude awakening with a low blow. Hits a swinging neck breaker for 2. Piper charges, but Rude dumps him to the floor. Piper grabs a drink from a fan and throws it in Rude's face and then punches away. Piper charges again and dives at Rude. They tumble over the top to the floor. They start to slug away out there, and we get a quick double count out as Rude bails to the back and Piper chases. They come back out where Piper decks Rude with a chair, then slugs the ref. Rude lands a chair shot, runs away. Tough finish for the last match of the night, but a real fun brawl with a lot of hate, some wild strikes. It was focused and effective, and a nice start to a meaty feud. I'm okay with the finish because you can't really blow it off yet. Piper's not going to lose, obviously, and you just beat Rude with Warrior, so I get why they took some time here. Good return for Piper. He's in shape. He looks fired up. Rude is improving. That was a very good last match. Again, it's a tough way to end the show with this finish. You wonder if they could have, I don't know. If you look at the 4 big matches, they all kind of end with a fuck finish in a way. Whether it was DQ, count out, double count out, or a heel win. So I guess this is the best of the choices, and the crowd didn't seem to care. So I went 3 stars on this, Scott.
I went 3.5 myself. Your match time to conclude this evening was 11 minutes even. This match was a lot of fun. Piper, obviously, gone for a while, but he's fired up. He's got the elbow pads going. I mean, he looks like he's ready for war. And Rude is now totally warmed up as a tremendous heel after the feud with Warrior. So he's ready to go. He's not going to dick around anymore. So I was expecting similar to Garvin and Valentine, not as snug, but close to it in the sense that they were going to have some fun just because, Piper doesn't wrestle, the technical whiz-bangs, at least not at the moment. But they're the kind of guys, he's the kind of guy that's going to wrestle just a hard-fought, just scummy brawl. And Rude settled in with it. What a last 4 matches of this show. God, this crowd just got loaded after that fucking Young Horowitz debacle.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've had so many. It's amazing, JR, how we've had so many MSG house shows where at the midway point we're like, God, this is a fucking hot fucking steamer. And then something happens, and the end of the show just saves it. It's so good. And you got to say right now that this is, to this point in our history, JR, this is the best the WWF roster has ever looked.
Yeah, maybe since their real big post-expansion peak when they had all the veterans coming in, late 85, early 86, that little stretch there, or maybe late 86, early 87, before it thinned out, Andre at his peak, Hogan, Bundy, Stud, Piper, all those guys were there. Yeah. I would say this is probably better, but that's the closest I could think of it since we've been watching anyway.
Right. I mean, everybody's just wrestling. Everybody brings their working boots now every night.
Yep.
And it's just, whether it's tags and mid-cards, the main events, everybody's just got their working boots on and busting their ass. And again, you can argue, and we've said it many times on many podcasts around PlaceToBeNation.com, that 1989 is arguably one of the best years of pro wrestling. And obviously, over in Crockett, they're wrestling their asses off right now, too. So this is a perfect example of that. 2 guys who you wouldn't think could put on a good storytelling match, not only did it with gusto for 11 minutes nonstop. The sleeper spot in the middle was a little shaky, but other than that, I mean, they went crazy. And it's Piper, so I wasn't expecting a clean ending by any stretch.
No,
so I was fine with the ending. It's Piper. I roll with it. But wow, Steve, what a way to end the show. The crowd was chaotic. What a way to bring Piper back into the fold.
Yeah, really great last match. I gave it 3.5 as well. I think they were in a tough spot. How good the last couple matches were. You could have lost them here, but these guys just come out. They wrestle really snug, really stiff. Maybe, like you said, not as stiff as the last one, but stiff. And Rude doesn't have the Warrior to carry him here, but still, I thought really wrestled really well. Kind of really into his spot. Did some great heel work. Some really funny moments. Him coming out in the beginning, really good. So I really enjoyed it. Like you, Scott, I knew with with Piper, we were going to get something silly at the end because he doesn't pin his shoulders for anyone except Bret Hart, I guess. But yeah, really enjoyed it. 3.5 stars. Good way to end the night. And I'm proud of these guys because, like I said, I think there was the opportunity here to kind of lose the crowd. Maybe a little fatigue because I felt watching it a little. After that last match, I kind of took a deep breath and looked and was like, wow, I still have 15 minutes left of this show. But they did a really good job and closed it out strong.
All right. Sounds like it's time to get into some awards here before we wrap things up. So let's talk match of the night. I went, obviously, what I thought was the best, just the big slugfest between Garvin and Valentine.
Yeah. I mean, there was a ton of nominees, but that one just nudged it above the others. Well,
I had 2 4s. I'm going to go Andre the Giant versus Ultimate Warrior. because I'm giving Andre the tip of the cap there. Would break the tie.
Garvin Valentine's, that's our second time. They won the December one as well. So who would have thought? They'll probably win a third one. We'll see. All right. The Cousin Jr. worst match of the night. I'm guessing we're all in agreement here with Forever Mark Young versus Horowitz.
Oh, yeah.
Chief J. Young.
All right. The Andre Award, Steve, here's where I gave my tip of the cap to Andre. What a performance by him. Just turning back the clock and just continues to be awesome out here. It was his night for me.
Yeah, I went Andre as well.
There's so many nominees. Oh my God! But yes, Andre deserves this one because again, unlike the other guys, he doesn't have much left in his tank. But he went all out here. He deserves it.
Yep, he's definitely. I mean, yeah, we call it the Andre the Giant Award for a reason. We'll have to tally up all his when he's finally done to see how many he won. But he's been up there. All right, the Sandy Beach Award for the worst worker. I went Mark Young for this. He looked lost and awful out there.
Terrible.
I actually went Horowitz just because Mark Young was flipping around and stuff, and that was kind of cool. But look, I'll go with the group here. I have no problem with saying it was Mark Young. They were both a disaster. So
it was awful.
I'll go with the group.
All right, best moment. I went with Warrior slamming Andre. That was and the way they did it, it wasn't built, but it worked. Like sometimes you say, "Oh, why did they?" Like he just does it, and then the crowd just gives us like shock pop, like, "Oh my God, he just slammed Andre." I thought it was just an awesome moment and a great match.
Yeah, it totally came out of nowhere. I had that as well. Didn't expect it to happen in the match. It certainly didn't expect to happen when they did it. Booked really well. Andre sold it really well, and just a big moment for Hillbilly Jim too, because that was the first time he ever seen Andre slam. So it was huge.
Out of nowhere. You got
that
too?
Out of nowhere. Yeah, that was crazy. Crowd went nuts for that.
All right.
Yep.
All right. For the first show, the first time we've named it the Ultimate Warrior Award for the most juiced up guy, I actually didn't go Warrior. I went Jimmy Snuka, who I thought looked just gassed out of his mind here in his return, and I think it'll continue. So that was my choice on this evening.
Yeah, he looked very misshapen. Yeah, I'll go with that.
I had Warrior written down. I don't remember Snuka's physique, so to speak, so I'm going to stick with Warrior on that one.
Okay. All right, let me mark that down.
We could have the best almost moment, which was Snuka almost doing his splash and then not.
Oh, right. The biggest fucking blue ball moment of the night. That was that
blue ball moment of the night, yeah.
All right, the Patera Award for the worst hair of the night. I went Mark Young here as well with that awful fucking cropped mullet thing he had going on.
Terrible.
Okay, God, so I had Mark Young written down in defiance that there's no way anyone could have worse hair than the rest of this card. And Greg the Hammer Valentine surpassed him with his hair. What the hell was going on with Greg the Hammer's hair?
Maybe it was a low flow shower head.
These weird cuts, these defined cuts around his face, and it's so weird looking. I gotta go with him. It's the weirdest looking head of hair I've seen in a long time. What a goofball that guy is.
All right, so me and Scott went Mark Young. Bennett, Valentine. All right, final grade. This show looked to be on its way to Stinkarooville. We haven't had a real bad MSG in a while, Scott. The worst one was probably that the February show when Jenny was on with us. But even then, you and I went 5.5. She went 4. So even December was a rare, really good one. So we haven't had a real low end MSG. I'm looking back. I don't even know the last time we had one that we all panned under 5. Looks like maybe January of '88. Me, you, and Pete. We're all under 4. So that's probably
it was Pete. So what do you
think?
Surprised?
Maybe we should have him on for October. But anyway, all right. So that said, the back end starting with Warrior was probably one of the best 4-match stretches we've had, and ate up a lot of time. And I didn't think even the beginning outside of the Mark Young was that bad. Usually we get some other crap, but I thought the Pafo match was fine. I liked the perfect match. Snuka Honky was okay. Really the only one down match. And the other ones are all so good. I went 7 out of 10. I thought this was a great show. Those last 4 matches are awesome. You got Andre Warrior, which is great. You got the 4-star beatdown, and then you get the really good tag title match, the last match. Just a lot of good stuff in here to like. It's kind of a hidden gem show, but I had never really heard of. So I went 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed it.
I'm going to concur with you on that. I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 as well. Yeah, what a way to get back into the building after having the summer off. Yeah, I mean, other than the Mark Young Horowitz match, which admittedly we probably went in going, this is going to fucking suck, and it fucking sucked. But yeah, the early stuff wasn't offensive, and then the last 4 matches, again, I don't know, JR, that might have to be an experiment. We might have to take a 4-match stretch and add up the stars. I mean,
right.
If you do that, I mean, holy crap.
For MSG, this is probably up there. I mean, this is
13. I mean, I had 13.5 stars. You had 13 because I added a half star to the Demolition.
It's got to
Busters.
be. I mean, it's got to be like the best 4-match MSG stretch. I mean,
It's
have we
crazy.
had 4 maybe really good ones in there, but in a row like that, it's got to be the best one. Like I'm looking at January of '89. Like you had a 4-star Rocker Brainbusters, 3.5 Herc DiBiase, 3.5 Hogan Boss Man, but those are all spread out. You know what I mean? Like I don't see 4 ratings like we just had on an MSG. I mean, if we dig, maybe we'll can find one, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either. 7.5 for me. What do you think, Steve?
Justin, do you have what I gave the last show I was on, the last one?
Was that January?
One? Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, you went 6.5.
Okay, this is, I think, a full point better, so I'm going to give it 7.5.
Okay.
I thought everyone just worked their ass off on this show. Right from Coco, right from the first bell, he worked his ass off. I like some of that early stuff. Only one match I didn't like, and everything else was like 2 to 2.5 at worst, and 4.5 at best. I just thought everyone just worked so hard. I think it's one of those that if you're the guy booking it and you're sending a note to Vince, you're saying like, I'm just really proud of all the guys tonight. Like everyone really came in and worked hard and earned their money, and it was a great crowd. A return to MSG, just a really good night for the WWF. So I think everyone earned every bit of that 7.5. So I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a great show, and I'm glad I had the chance to look back on it with you guys. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was definitely a hidden gem of a show, worth watching. Unfortunately, Scott, I don't think we'll be seeing the same next time we're in the Garden. Real quick, though, our buddy Dave Schletty had typed up a bunch of feedback for SummerSlam 89 and then forgot to post it, and he sent it to me. So real quickly, I'm going to read it because he's a big fan of the show. He says, love the podcast, another one of my favorite pay-per-views. I've seen the show 100 more times. I had the pay-per-view on VHS when I was a kid. The opener was a dream match at the time and didn't disappoint. Spectacular. I love both 6-man matches in different ways. The Rockers was a work rate 6-man, fast-paced, and you wanted to see Martel get his. Demolition was great for getting to see all the guys in the same match. Smash in pure beast mode, and Andre was fun, even though he wasn't involved that much. Dusty Honky was fun, especially the promo before and after by each guy. Gene's interview with Bobby Roode's legendary, with Gene cursing on air. I couldn't believe it as a kid, and still hilarious to this day. Rude Warrior, one of Warrior's 3 to 4 best matches, up there with WrestleMania 7 and SummerSlam 92. And WrestleMania 6. Great back and forth match with Rude having amazing offense but not being able to keep Warrior down. Really great IC title match that made the belt seem important, and a great transition to the Piper feud with the finish. Garvin's jokes of ring announcer weren't funny before the match, but after with the corrections, I find them hilarious. Perfect and Rooster was okay and short. DiBiase Snuka was okay too with the cheap ending. Also, I love the main event. Zeus could have wrestled but was terrifying, and Savage did a great job holding it together. And Hogan was great as well. Great show. I love the announcing. Tony and Jesse are a great pair, but I did miss Gorilla as a kid and even wish today it was him and Jesse. Gorilla and Jesse are my favorite announced theme, although Tony was great here and at the Rumble. So we know his take for WrestleMania 6.
Yes.
For the commentary. All right, so thanks, David. I'm glad we get to read that for you.
Thank you, David.
Remembered. I had him remind me. I said, send it to me around 8:30 Monday night. And he did, so I read it. All right, Scott, we'll be back next week. Peter Winston will be joining us for the October 89 Saturday night's main event, and then we'll be off for a few weeks. Got some vacations and holidays in there going on, so we're going to have a little bit of a layoff after next week, but we'll be back quick with a show here. Anything else you got going on you want to talk about?
Well, as you read in the at the break, great main event last week. This week, I will be making my Great Debate debut. Myself, Mr. Atherton, and a couple of other gentlemen. I have not been on the Great Debate yet. We do the Great Debate. We do the special wrestling Great Debate segment on Main Event a couple times with Andy, but I've never been on the actual Great Debate show. So I'll be making my debut later on in the week for that. And then Main Event next week, we'll talk about all sorts of stuff, All Out, G1 Climax, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, Great Debate coming up this week.
Steve, anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, the Sportscasters Podcast, plugging away here, Season 9. I just had comedian Jim Florentine on the show, and who was with Jim? Oh, author Jason Turbo, I believe, was on that show as well, who wrote a book about the 81 Dodgers.
Oh, yeah.
A fun spot. You can find it at wherever you listen to this show. I'm sure you can find the Sportscasters, and you can follow me on Twitter at @sports_casters. And the Adams Division podcast with Peter Winston we mentioned earlier is on the Place to Be Nation now. You can find it on the wrestling feed. And if you follow me at @sports_casters, or Peter is at GF Allen Pound Pod on Twitter, you can find more information. And we are recording Thursday, part 2. So I'll get that to Justin in a few days, and he'll get it up on the feed in the next week or so, I'm sure. So, yep. Excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Very, very good. Rumors afloat. Next week there should be another Wrestling War Zone. We're up to the 1996 Royal Rumble, so hoping to get that to you next week as well. And then I'll be on a little pod layoff for a few weeks, so taking a breather. All right. All that said, PlayStation.com each and every day. Check out that Greatest Song of the 80s tournament on Facebook, like we mentioned. You can follow all our social media, Facebook.com/PlaceToBeNation, Place number 2 BNation on Twitter and Instagram as well. So, for Mr. Bennett, for Criscolo, and myself, we'll talk to you soon. Everyone, take care.
Someone took a knife and drove it deep in my heart. You walked out that door, I swore that I didn't care.